23rd, 2019, a public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission to order. Welcome, everyone. I'm John Thompson, Chair of the Commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you'll need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff presents staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any comments from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the City Ordinance, Chapter 27 of City Zoning Code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior Standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. And I'd like to introduce commissioners from my left.
Juan Ricardes.
Jose Chalats.
Leaving Win.
And staff today present is Ron Vila, Beverly Jusak, and with legal, Ernie Mueller. We have the minutes of the March 26, 2019 meeting on the agenda. We need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
No further conversation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. Announcements.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Under announcements, we have the staff reviews that every month we come to you and we'll give you an update of the activity that we do internally. I'm going to submit that into the record. And then also under announcements, we have Brenda Throyer with the YCDC and we have Neil Strelo with VHB. They're going to give you a little background on a meeting that's coming up on February 15, 2019 at 5:30. It's the vision plan, the 2020 vision plan for Ybor City. So at this time, I'm going to have them address the board. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Neil Strelo. I'm a senior planner with VHB. My address is at 501 East Kennedy, Suite 1010, Tampa, Florida. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. We are just announcing an upcoming city meeting on the Vision Ybor Vision 2020 plan. It is going to be at May 15th at 5, starting at the Children's Board. We have been working with the YCDC and the Planning Commission on an update to the 2005 and 2010 vision plan with a look at strategic actions moving forward. So really this is a opportunity for general public and to come out and get involved with the vision plan. In addition, I had provided a couple info cards for your information, and it really is just an addressing to our website, project website that's up and running, where surveys will be instituted and polling. And so we would ask everybody to seek out the website at yborvision2020.com and register and start to participate with this process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just if any members of the commission are going to attend this, please let the staff know, Ron or Dennis, so that, because if more than one of you attend, we have the potential of a sunshine meeting, especially if some of these matter, something that comes out of that may come before you. So I think in an abundance of caution, it would make sense that if you are going to attend this, let staff know so that they can take whatever actions necessary to make sure we don't violate the sunshine.
Thank you.
So for the first case this morning, is BLC 19-59 for the address of 1307 East 15th Avenue. Currently, there's a vacant parcel. The zoning classification is YC2. The approximate square footage of the duplex that's being constructed is 2,600 square feet. And quickly, I'm going to go through the photo essay.
Ron, let me put you on pause here for a second. Do we need to do the ex parte communications and the swear-ins?
We do. So let's pause right now.
Right, timeout.
Yeah. So
TV timeout.
go ahead, Ernie.
All right. I'd like to ask members of the commission if they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the matters coming before you this morning. If you've had verbal communications, if you could please disclose the sum and substance of those communications, when and where the communications occurred, and with whom they occurred. If you have had any written communications, if you please disclose the nature of those communications, and then present a copy to Beverly so that it can be placed in the record. We've had no ex parte communications.
So at this time, everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand, including staff.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will be providing this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And now moving forward into the photo presentation. We start out with the Sanborn map from 1929. The subject property is highlighted in the green box. Does face 15th Avenue. Continuing to the north, you have Columbus Drive for point of reference. To the west, you have 13th Street. And to the east, you have Republic de Cuba. There is an alley that runs to the rear of the property. It would not be part of this request. It is an open alley, but unimproved. As you see here, this indicates the blocks and the lots and the alley that runs behind it. Once again, you're on 15th Avenue, 13th Street, and Republic de Cuba. So the subject site, see from the street, you have the granite curbing, you have the parkway that's been infilled with concrete, and then you have the linear sidewalk. You have a contributing structure. This is to the east of the subject site. What's important to notice is the setback from the front property line and then elevation from grade as we try to match the new construction as it comes in. And this is a duplex that abuts the subject property to the west. Once again, elevation from grade and setback from property line will be discussed through the presentation. This is directly across the street. You have some more period homes. Street shot looking to the west. See their on-street parking. And this is looking to the east. From the alley looking back into the property, looking north, 15th Street is in the background. And just to conclude, with these new constructions that we're seeing, it's very important that the infill fits in with the vernacular of the neighborhood. I think it's important to show here that you have your street, you have your granite curbing, and whenever we have granite curbing that's already been sunken down in an area, and at this particular site, they're going to raise it where the driveway used to be, and they're going to put the driveway on the other side. So if the curb is expressed already, and you need to create a new apron, it should be depressed in that spot, and where it was already sunken down, it should be elevated to create that street presence. Also in this area, they have the street, they have the granite curbing, they have this small parkway that's kind of a safe zone for the pedestrians and a visual for the community. This is very residential. Over here is the subject site that somebody's poured in the concrete. As part of the request, we had the agent go ahead and infill that, so the continuation of that parkway with some kind of turf is important to replace in this particular case. And this is looking at that same block, and you see the relationship here as you go down from the center line to the curbing, the parkway, and then the sidewalk as it's more defined. At this time, I have Mr. Gibbons address the board, and I'll be back with the staff report. Thank you.
Good morning. Is this working? My name is Joe Gibbons with Gulf Bay Builders. I'm the applicant and the builder of the project. Address is 5020 North Coolidge Avenue, Tampa, 33614. And the first of a couple today. This is at 1307 East 15th Avenue. After meeting with staff, one of the first changes we're going to make is there is a grand tree that's located over here on the east side of the property, and we're going to go ahead and flip and have the ribbon drive come in on this side. We're going to move the structure over to the minimum setback to give us a little more room and relief for the protection of the grand tree. As Ron had stated, right now there is a concrete apron that separates between the granite curb and the proposed new sidewalk that we will construct. And we're going to have a ribbon drive, 3 feet of concrete, 3 feet of grass area, and then 3 feet of ribbon drive. And in the rear, this is YC2, so we only are required to have 2 parking spots. And right now they're showing an existing apron here that will be eliminated, and the curb that we're going to take out over here on the east side with the new ribbon drive will then be placed back into to finish off this existing granite curb and make that full connection there. So this is the subject site here, and this is the existing, I guess, filled-in parkway that will be removed. This is the existing apron that was for the previous structure. The new ribbon drive will come in just behind this truck here. That granite curb will be taken out and then brought down to this area. This is a existing concrete that was sunken down. It doesn't appear there was any granite at any time. So the curb, or the granite curb that we're going to remove from the new apron, will then be brought down and brought to the same existing elevation of this existing granite curb. We'll be taking out this existing concrete and putting in a new concrete walkway, 5-foot walkway, with the historic cuts every 3 feet. This is looking west. The subject property is back in here. So this kind of shows an existing parkway that we're going to restore in front of our proposed structure. This is another photo looking west towards our subject property, which is behind this yellow van here. So we'll be restoring it to granite curb, green parkway, and then new sidewalk. Our proposed setbacks are in line with the residents to the east, and the one to the west sets back, I'm sorry, the one to the east sets back a little further, and so we've kind of kept it in line with the one to the east, which is about 10 feet, 10 inches. In some previous applications, we've worked with staff to make sure we're in line. As far as the elevations go, finished floor elevations, the one to the east is about 32 inches finished floor elevation. The one to the west is about 36 inches of finished floor elevation. So we kind of propose to kind of go in between the middle there. The road does kind of fall from east to west, so that's why we thought we'd maybe be a couple inches above the one to the east, but a couple inches below the one to the west, which a finished floor elevation is going to be somewhere around 32 inches. We are proposing new sidewalks. The proposed city sidewalk, 5 foot with the appropriate hatching, and then new sidewalks coming in from the city sidewalk. The proposed apron coming back to parking that is kind of hidden behind the structure. The AC units are hidden behind the structure, and that concludes the site plan presentation. Moving into the elevation. This is one that the board has seen before on another couple of sites. It's a proposed duplex. We've made some changes throughout some of our other presentations, which I have some. Colored renderings here. I still haven't had time to have the artist make some revisions, but this window up top here has actually been scooted over to give it some relief off the corner. Right in here. This one actually shows it a little bit more, so now we've got some relief between the corner board and the window trim. This is the entrance to the second floor unit, so we've installed just a railing to kind of give it that separation that this is for this unit and this is for downstairs. This is the porch for the second floor of the upper unit. Just another kind of angle here. We do have exposed rafters here. It's a 24-inch overhang. We do have some barges here, 4-foot columns, concrete columns. These are wrapped in a brick, and then we have a 4-inch concrete cap. This is typically how we do our window trim. The windows are the Geldwin Sightline. It's a wood window, aluminum clad, that has been very well received by staff. We've got quite a few of those installed now through the ARC and starting in the BLC. Window trim, and then we use this crown molding above. These are built on stem wall, so what we've done is designed a stem wall foundation to give it the appearance of a pier system, and which is here along the sides, the corners, and we bring that out flush with this trim board. It's a 2-inch trim board, and then we've got this face brick that goes on. We continue around the back, and then on the other side, these are the concrete masonry columns, and then 4-inch concrete cap, and then from there up continued all the way up through to the second floor with typical framing. Looking at the cross sections, here shows the stem wall, the concrete masonry pier with a 4-inch concrete cap, typical framing for the support of the second floor deck, and then on up through for the support of the truss system. The window wrap here, we typically around the windows use the Hardy artisan trim, and then we use a 3-inch crown, and that goes throughout all of the windows and the entire project, the back, 2 sides. Here shows the exposed rafter tails. I'm sorry, that are 2-foot overhang, and then the gable end has a 16-inch overhang with the additional Hardy trim around the bands, the 6-inch trim board on the sides, and then to give it some relief between the first and second floor, we use a 12-inch banding board there. The Hardy is the James Hardy smooth siding, and then the exposed stucco for the stem wall here would be a sand finish stucco. So in this picture here, this would actually have the face brick on this pier system. This kind of shows how we detail the tops of the columns, again with crown molding, 2-inch boards, 2-inch thickness boards for corner boards. Shows our window detail. There again, it's the Geldwin aluminum clad wood window. They are true double hungs. The exterior doors are the Therma-Tru Craftsman style, kind of time appropriate. We use the GAF Timberline shingles. As we move through, we'll work with staff on color selections, which are based off of here. We'll work with the owner of the project and then get with staff on color selections. This is a project that's at 1416 East Columbus. That's kind of been the inspiration of this project. Shows another photo of 1316 East Columbus. And with that, that would conclude my presentation of the site plan and the building plans.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines for the plans that we reviewed on April 5th, 2019. This is a model that you've seen before. As I stated earlier, that it's site-specific, so what we're looking for on the onset of the project is that the elevation from grade is in line with the block face that's already been created, and we take into account the historic structures that are on that block face or the immediate vicinity. Sometimes the block face is not established and we have a lot of vacant land there, so we have to create that block face. And also the setbacks are very important as well in creating that edge, that urban edge that we all talk about. He did demonstrate the setbacks and the elevation from grade. With the project as it develops, sometimes fencing is omitted early on and then it's discussed later on, so he didn't talk about any fencing. I don't know if any fencing was discussed with the potential owner. The brick veneer in this situation, he talks about cladding the piers, the perimeter piers and the front piers. So I'd like to look at an example of the veneer. Also the railing and stair detail, what materials are those as you come into the front. And then if this does get approved, it's contingent upon the final color selection to be addressed with staff. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. See an opportunity for public comment, but yes, we do. We have a comment.
John Marsh, Transportation Planning. We met with the applicant at the DRC after reviewing the site plan from March 3rd, and there were some issues that we still, almost like tweaks that still needed to be addressed, that there has not been a revised site plan. During his presentation, he's talking about flipping the entire site plan and moving the driveway. That does appear to solve one of our issues, which had to do with the parking conflicting with the protected tree radius. But while Mr. Gibbons has always been very open to solving these issues, Transportation would like another opportunity to review the revised site plan, because since he's moving it, it's really a different site plan than what we've seen. So I'm requesting that if you make approval, that it's contingent on Transportation being able to review and approve the revised site plan.
Thank you.
They're mostly dealing with things like flare issues and some minor adjustments and clarifications.
Thank you. Okay, no more public comments since we're out of public. Commissioners, questions?
You had mentioned shingle colors were going to be worked out with staff and the owner. Is the main building color being worked out as well as has been selected?
It's still being worked out. The sheet that I've been using for the last couple of years with Ron and staff has been this one here. And I've mentioned to Ron before that I wanted to kind of get a couple of more colors available that are in this fabric to present to staff. That so we've got a few of these coming forward now, and working with staff to get some additional colors available than just what we have here.
Okay, great. And then what were the materials for the exterior, like railings on the balconies and the porch and sort of that divider that you had as well?
So the exterior railings are they're pressure treated wood that we paint to go along with the color selections of the home. Typically, whatever the trim color is, we would paint the railings the same color, which is typically white.
And then did you have an example of the brick veneer?
I don't have one with me. I do have some photos that I could present. It's a Boral brick. We're using some right now up in the Tampa Heights ARC that I can take to Ron's office, and he could have those as all right. It's a kind of a reddish brick. It's Boral, and but I can bring that to Ron's office probably when I bring the additional colors that I'd like to present.
Great. And then the project didn't have any fencing, correct?
As of right now, the owner has not requested to do any fencing. However, as we move into the project, if that's something, then I would get with staff to present.
And so to the south of the property, is that alley no longer in use?
No.
No longer in use, okay. All right, no further questions, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I just have a question, and I know we're going to be looking at other projects of yours, and maybe this is also just a general question that we'll open up during the discussion phase. But we haven't seen floor plans, but I'm just wondering, as we start to see more and more of these new duplexes inserted within the historic neighborhoods, if there may be some kind of flexibility with the fenestration, because after a while, one of the unique characteristics of historic structures is there often was a different rhythm or a different pattern between the first floor and the second floor, reflecting, a different floor plan. In your elevations, it's consistent, first and second. So again, kind of just a general question, might there be an opportunity, especially with the fenestration towards the visible public view corridor, to introduce a different pattern or a shift or like a double window on the lower one and a single one on top, just for some variety?
Sure, absolutely. The next two presentations I'm actually working with our designer on coming up with, because the next ones are a little more popular than this one, just because of the size of them, and we are working on getting a variety and some introductions. Ron previously mentioned there's a lot of brother-sister structures throughout Ybor, but we're trying to come up with just a few variations with window details and windows themselves that still will reflect the history of Ybor, but still keep the floor plan the same, but introducing some different elevation types.
Thank you.
And if I could, getting back to John's request, if this was to move forward, what I would like to present is Acela has a new system or an updated system, and it's getting harder and harder to upload things. What I'd like to do is, after the revised plan, as the site plan is done, is actually, and I've met with John several times in person before, is before I upload it into Acela for permitting, is to get with him and his staff to make sure, because the city's getting busier and busier, and I'd like to try to be one and done. So with the revised site plan, I'd want to meet with John and staff to make sure everything is to their standards before I would upload it in for permitting purposes.
I have no questions.
Let's see, we've talked about on the site plan, are you confident that when you flip it that you will be able to achieve what's been or what seems to be required staying out of that tree radius?
Yes, I actually had an arborist report, and I've met Brian Knox from Natural Resources on site, and it was under his recommendation that we flip it for the ribbon drive. And we're going to keep the structure just off the west property line to give it even further relief than what when we visited on site.
When you say just off the property line, do you mean within the appropriate setback?
Correct, within the appropriate setbacks.
Okay, so we're not going to be, you don't see a variance
no,
in your future?
No, it's actually a pretty wide lot. It's a 60-foot lot. The structure itself is only 32.
Okay, because in order to accommodate transportation's requests, we potentially need to craft a motion that allows something to go forward potentially, depending on what the motion is. But I wouldn't want to, put that out there and have it not be practicable when you flip it,
Sure.
or require additional input from us. If it's a straight line forward, then it might be considered. But I guess we just need to hear from you that you think that, or you've already done the work to flip it and make sure that you have the dimensions.
Correct. Right now, it was a proposed 10-foot setback, and when we reverse it, we're going to go with a 5-foot side yard setback off of the west property line. Code allows 3 feet, but we're going to keep it at 5 feet. And instead of the 10 feet that, once we flipped it. And after talking with Brian, that just, reassured him that was going to give us even further relief for the protection of the.
And when you flip it and the apron moves, there's no conflicts with any utility poles or anything that's going to
No.
get in your way there?
No.
Okay, thank you. I think that you've had the chance to answer questions as we've moved along here through this. Do you have any rebuttal to any of the information or any of the comments from the commissioners that you've heard thus far?
If I may, we do have, this is a photo of the brick that we use. See that?
Yeah, we'll probably need you to get the sample to Ron and defer that to a staff approval, most likely.
It's not going to be too clear.
Yeah.
That's about all you get.
Yeah, I don't think we want blue brick.
No, it's a red brick, but I'll get some samples over to
Yeah.
Ron.
And I think that, we've been comfortable in the past with delegating some of those approvals to staff level, and, we've seen you a number of times on these projects, so I'm confident that we can move that forward. So if you don't have any additional rebuttals, we'll close the public hearing and allow for commissioners to discuss the case and get close to a motion.
Yeah, I think with just review from DOT and with staff review, the things that we kind of talked about, I think should be fine.
I just have a question for us about the lack of a sill on the windows. Is that a traditional detailing for residential? It has normally there's sort of another board, so the whole window is framed. What he's proposing is there's just a sill, but no board underneath.
My house doesn't have a board underneath it.
Okay. I noticed it showed up, but I guess you could do either, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Could you put up so that we can look at the sill condition that is being discussed?
One is not more traditional than the other, then I guess both occur within the district.
An elevation would be more appropriate,
Okay.
please.
We actually, in addition to the sill of the window itself, we do add on another sill underneath it. Ends up being about a 3.5-inch sill beyond the sill of the window.
You have a picture early on, right, for the window and another of your projects similar?
Let's also be cognizant of the fact that the hearing's closed, so not too much banter going back and forth, so that we don't have to reopen it.
I
This
would
is-
just go ahead and reopen it. I think you're too far down.
Okay.
We'll reel it back in. Okay, we'll open the hearing back up to or we need a motion for that? Or is that just, we'll just open it?
Motion to open.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, we can actually talk to you now. Okay,
I see one sill here. You're referring to another?
Yeah, so we actually add an additional sill here that is it's 1.5 inches thick by 3.5 inches wide that comes underneath the window.
So that's not reflected in the drawing, in the photograph you're showing us?
No, there's a staff member that inspects our homes once a week, and we've worked with her on some of the other projects that we're under construction now, and
Do you have a section through that window that shows that detail?
not on the current plans. We've been doing it out in the field.
Okay, well, I appreciate you being honest with us, but it's these little details that are really important for us to,
right.
understand as we approve.
But I think going back to the global question of whether or not
Yeah.
it's appropriate or not, I think that that's an appropriate solution, and going underneath it with additional cell numbers is an appropriate solution. So
Okay,
we can probably punt that one to staff too, just
Yeah.
to make sure that we don't get something that's completely out of proportion. But if you're talking about a 3.5-inch, member under there that's a trim board
Correct.
underneath the sill, that doesn't seem inappropriate.
okay.
And as I mentioned, we've worked with staff. They come out once a week too. We've got several projects under construction now, either between the BLC or the ARC. And as we've been under construction, if the staff member has questions, then we go back to Ron and Elaine and get things addressed. Elaine's actually been out to site to verify things and whatnot too. So as we've had questions to
Right.
make sure we're getting it right the first time.
Right, I appreciate that, but it's important that as you present drawings to the board, that the drawings reflect your intentions.
Sure. And from the original drawings, the sill has been added after, even after the permitted drawings
Okay.
that met the inspector's wishes.
Thank you.
Can you elaborate on that? What is the inspector wishing to incorporate into the
the
documents that
original
the
sill
BLC and the permitting agency didn't see?
Yeah, the original sill that we had wasn't thick enough or long enough or wide enough. So we came up with a system or a solution, and that has been appropriate to staff, historical staff.
Okay. I would, since we have the opportunity to see you again and again, and 2 more times today, and I'm assuming you're going to be doing some more
Yes.
projects that are current and ongoing that are reflecting kind of, the in condition, in the field conditions that you're coming up with, and we understand that this is an iterative process where you're making the houses better and along the way with our input, with other people's input. To the commissioner's point, if you're showing something in the drawings that is different than what's out there, you're in some kind of gray area. Sure. That would most likely be able to be mitigated by staff and staff approval. But we want to be part of the conversation. Sure. In terms of, how are you building these things? How is it being, developed and bettered? Mm-hmm. And if you have a current picture of brick, you have a current picture of the sill details that are working for you, take a picture and show us.
We actually, on this Thursday, we're finishing one of the first ones that's in the Tampa ARC, and we've hired a professional architectural photographer to update. This is one that we did in the Seminole Heights ARC several years ago. So we've hired a professional photographer now that house is done, and a lot of things that we've inputted in there through staff's recommendations, those photographs are going to be professionally taken by an architectural photographer that I will be able to use in future presentations.
Right.
And as well as give those to my architect that.
Yeah, well, I mean, those have other value. We don't need something that fancy, but if you're deviating along the way, we've seen this particular version of this house probably 4 times maybe, mm-hmm. And it keeps getting moved along and evolving. If there's pieces and parts of that are happening in the field that aren't currently reflected in the drawings, just bring those along. Sure. So that they can be incorporated into the record and we can all see them as we go along.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to hire this professional that can get the angles so I can present those in a manner, and not only for staff and the board, but also that I can give those to my architect and say, this is what is approved, this is how we're building it.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and close, or I think you've had the chance to rebut along the way here. If you're comfortable, we'll close the hearing, the public hearing, and move towards a motion that moves this one forward. So we need a motion.
Do we want to do it with conditions?
Yes. Yeah.
Can we do this just a discussion?
Sure.
I earlier recommended, as we see more and more of these, which is clearly like becoming a pattern, for infill in the neighborhood, the use of alternating some of the fenestration. Mm-hmm. Is that something you'd like to see on this project, or is just a general comment as we move forward?
I think it's a general comment to the applicant and further in future ones, because we've kind of, in previous versions, we've harped on them to kind of get everything in line and in order and make sense. So now we're, yeah. I think that as a piece of the interior, we can let him know that on future applications he's got a little bit of leeway to deal with it, but okay. That's up to the applicant to deal with. Okay, and then again, just a general question as we see more of these types of projects. So I think it's very well done, by the way, but the proposed design here to provide some privacy for the front porch provides a railing down, that segments the porch into 2 sides, which I don't think is something I've really seen historically done. I understand the need for that. I'm wondering if that's the best way to treat this. I'm not sure if it's historically when it started to happen, but I've seen other ways of dividing porches. They're a little bit more decorative, a little bit more obvious. Sort of, they start off tall against the wall and kind of swoop down towards the fence. Again, I'm fine with what's proposed for this project, but as a board, as we see more and more of these, I think it might be worth some investigation as to
like an historic reference.
Yeah,
for that condition.
For that kind of condition. I know in New Orleans you see that a lot. Even if it's a duplex, it's down the middle. But there's a decorative way to provide the privacy that is follows the guidelines, that creates less of a kind of a playpen effect, which is what I'm seeing in this one. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No, that's it.
Okay.
So we do move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented on the public hearing in BLC 19-59 for the property located at 1307 East 15th Avenue with the following conditions. Present a final site plan with transportation for review, and also coordinate with staff the colors scheme for the property.
And brick samples.
Also provides samples of the veneer brick for the piers at the base of the building.
Okay, we have a motion with some conditions. Any, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion with conditions. Is the applicant understanding of the conditions and willing to adhere to them?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Next item on the agenda is BLC 19-60 for the address of 1707 East Columbus Drive. That is also a vacant parcel. Zoning is YC2. Square footage of the structure is about 3,000 square foot. It's for a duplex and some site work. Moving to the Sanborn map, show the density in 1929. The yellow indicates frame construction, so you see the concentration of dwelling units in the area. You have Michigan Avenue to the north, which is Columbus Drive today. Then you have 17th Street to the west. You have 18th Street to the east. There is an alley that the city of Tampa, through the trust fund, created in the back. So with these challenging parcels off of Columbus Drive, that they have an entrance off the primary street, off of Columbus Drive if they will, or if they choose to use the alley for the vehicular access, they can. In this request, the automobile will come off the alley. There will be no curb cut off of the primary street, which is Columbus Drive. The Sanborn map also shows us the setbacks that were established there. There are a lot of vacant parcels today, but this is the subject site. And just for clarification as well, the third case this morning that you can hear is in this location here. So this immediate block, you're going to see a lot of infill. This is the current overhead. Property in question for this case here. This is the alley that I spoke about, and I'll show you some pictures. But you see the vacant parcels that are here that were not reflected in the Sanborn, that through urban renewal we lost some. This structure here we relocated as part of the widening of I-4. This was the last home that we relocated. So that kind of reestablished that block face. Then you have a series of stores across the street. Now that's Design Styles, which is an architectural firm. You have single family here, and then some more stores back in the day that supplemented the environment. And this is also a relocated home, part of the widening of I-4, but that orientation faces 17th Street. So to walk you around, this is off of Columbus Drive. This is the subject site. Just next door, series of vacant parcels in both directions, to the east and the west. Directly across the street, this board was involved. This structure here came in for an ad valorem. This was Spoto's bodega back in the day. It was a live work. The shop was on the bottom, and then the resident was on top. This structure had fire damage and had a tough life, but right now it's vibrant and it's moving forward. This is looking at Columbus Drive. You see the relationship. This is Questaway Cigar Factory. You see the relationship of the massing to the street. This is to the west. This is to the east. This is the bodega that I spoke about with the live work. This is the relocated house that's about 10 foot back from the property line. Columbus Drive is a special street, so the land development also wants 22 feet from the center line to where the structure sits. So there's two masters that they had to serve here. Preservation with a setback of of the structures, and then the center line setback, and Mr. Gibbons will address that as well. This is looking at the parcel from the alley, looking to the north. This is the alley that was brought up to transportation standards. This is looking to the east. And then to conclude, this is looking to the west. At this time, Mr. Gibbons will address the board.
Good morning again. Joe Gibbons, Gulf Bay Builders, 5020 North Coolidge Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33614. I'm the owner and the applicant, builder of the project. (1707) East Columbus. It's a proposed duplex, and we're proposing to use the current improved alleyway in the back. We have a couple of minor changes we're going to make here, working with transportation staff of the flare here. We're going to get it 1 foot off the property line. Right now it's only about 6 inches, so we've got to make some corrections there. The AC pads are in the back. We're proposing to have a stepping stone walkway from the parking area. We've worked with staff on some previous projects and are able to meet our backup alleyway here using the improved alley. Stepping stones to the front. There is a current sidewalk in place here, however, it's got some issues that we're proposing to remove and to put in a brand new sidewalk. And then with having the sidewalks from the new city sidewalk up to the entrances of the duplex. Our proposed setback is in line with the structure that would be 3 lots to the east, the home that was relocated there, which is about 10 feet. The property to the west is a vacant lot, and then there's a corner parcel here that is also vacant. Our proposed finished floor elevation will be in line with that home that was 3 lots to the east, which is approximately about 32 inches of finished floor elevation. Getting with the So this is the subject property that Ron had mentioned that had been moved here. The setback from the sidewalk to the front porch is approximately 10 feet, and their finished floor elevation somewhere in the neighborhood about 32 inches. This is the subject site here. This is the sidewalk that I'd mentioned. Although it's usable now, we intend to replace it from our property line to property line. Moving into the elevation, this is a project that we've presented before and are currently constructing in some other areas. It's a duplex. We've taken all of the previous considerations and implemented those into this proposed plan. Double hung windows here in the corner on the entranceways, adding relief off of the corners. Again, we've got the proposed brick, which I will present to city staff for their approval. It's the stem wall foundation. There again, we've given it the appearance that it's on a pier foundation by adding these brick relief here. This will be a smooth sand finish stucco between the columns. And then we have a 24-inch overhang all the way around, exposed rafter tails. The windows are again the Geldwin windows, and as I mentioned before in a previous presentation, we'll work with staff on providing them some detail of how we're doing the windows with the window sill and the window trim. It shows here a 2-inch wood sill. We did get some information here. It's a 2-inch thick window sill, and the width of it's approximately 3.5 inches, and that lies underneath the sill of the window, which is again a aluminum-clad wood window. It's got the 1x6 V-groove soffit with the exposed rafter tails. We have a 2x6 fascia, and we are not proposing to do any gutters or downspouts on this. The drainage of the lot allows us to get the drainage to the right-of-way. Some more detail here with the open rake, the 1x6 V-groove soffit, exposed rafter tails. We have ridge beams across the front. These have been designed on another project that we worked with staff on, and we actually built a couple different ones. We have some other projects that were side by side, and we've come up with a couple of variations for this, the ridge beams that staff had approved. The concrete columns with a 4-inch concrete cap. As previously stated, I will get with staff and present them the proposed brick the brick veneer that we'll be using, along with the colors. Some of the again, this has been changed. This is now a double hung window. We were able to get that relief a little bit more than what this is just an artist rendering. Here it shows the stucco. This will actually be brick. These columns will be brick. And then we've got double hung with some relief between the window trim and the actual corners. Shows our ridge beams, exposed rafter or exposed soffit, which is a 1x6 V-groove. This is the entrance to the second floor units. We have based on staff's recommendation, a railing that gives it the separation between the first floor entrance and the second floor entrance. This shows our ridge beams. Another look. These we've changed under board's recommendations on another project. This column will continue all the way up. These will not be. That's just going to be a column all the way up, which I can show you. Right here in the corners. So these columns just continue all the way up instead of having the 24-inch by 24-inch columns below. We are working with staff on adding a couple more options for color selections that the owners will be able to use based on staff's approval once we present those additional colors. The exterior door hardware is the Schlage Century. We're proposing a matte black on this project. The entry doors are the Therma-Tru shaker style Craftsman doors with impact glass. This shows a little bit, this is how we're doing the tops of the windows. As I've mentioned, we actually had now a 2-inch by 3.5-inch wood sill that is underneath the windows. We've worked with staffs and a field inspector and have come up with a detail that they're happy with. This shows the stem wall. This will be wrapped in a approved brick veneer that will be smooth. This is a 2-inch thick band board that separates from the stem wall to the start of the foundation. Typical column trim detail with additional crown molding at the top. This again shows the original sill was a 1-inch. We've now added that to be a 2-inch thick sill. The shingles will be the GAF Timberline shingle. And there again, as we move through the project, we will get with staff on the approval of the color selections. And that presents my presentation for this project.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. This application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines with the plans that were reviewed on April 5th. As always, I said that this is a vacant parcel and the request is site specific, so we look at the relationship of the environment, the surrounding environment, and see how this could fit in. The relocated house to the east was the house that was referred to with the setback about 10 foot from the property line. Having the 10 foot from the property line also meets land development's special street setback at 22 to the center line. So it knocks out, 2 birds with 1 stone there. I think there is a huge benefit in having the alley there and using the alley access to come in. As demonstrated on his site plan, the pad for the parking just looks like a monolithic pour. Traditionally, there were some cuts or some tool joints. There was not just the pour that was in place, so that needs to be developed a little bit further. There were some inconsistencies on his drawings that were submitted to us. On the elevations, it showed cladding of the veneer brick, and then in the section, it just called out concrete. I didn't know if it was going to be stucco, so there was some discussion that needs to take place this morning to further develop his direction. And then lastly, if it's approved, the final color selection will be discussed with staff. The railing and stair detail as well, I think, was deficient in the delivery this morning. And Mr. Marsh with Transportation is here if he wishes to engage with some comments.
Thank you, Ron. We do have the opportunity for public comment. I don't have any comments. Had to check over the board. No transportation comments, so we'll ask questions starting on my left, please.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Since you're bringing these designs with a historic reference, this particular layout has a bump up on the porch to create the access for the second floor unit. Do you have any other pictures of similar buildings that they had this kind of solution, that they break out the front porch?
No, we're actually under construction right now on some previously approved. When I came before the board back, I think in October, November, to present the first one, we actually had the entranceway that was popped out of the elevation. So we worked with staff and to incorporate it so it was back flush with the elevation, and then the door is wrapped around the side. We did that to give it the, I guess, the look of a single-family home. But yeah, originally it was popped out here, came out about 4 feet off the front, and so we worked and got it back into, so it's flush with the front of the elevation. Right here.
Right.
Because originally it had popped out this way, about 4 feet.
And the reason for popping out the entrance is because the stairs didn't fit inside. I mean, we don't see the floor plan, so we don't have an understanding of what happened there.
So this is the entranceway to the second floor. Originally, this had popped out an additional 4 feet. Actually, it was almost 6 feet that came out, and then the door was on the front of it. And so we, under the board's recommendations, had redesigned this whole thing to get the entranceway back in line with, you know, so everything kind of kept in front here. And then put the entrance door off to the side so it wasn't visible from the street.
Okay. I'm not 100% sure if that is helping you, your elevation, or it's just so much of a variance for the typical house that we see in the historic district. So that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Just a quick question, because it appears that you're asking us to review this based on what I'm seeing are photographs that don't belong to the project. How wide is the front porch and the balcony above it?
It's 8 feet deep, and then this balcony
The balcony is the same width.
Yeah,
It's
so
the same depth.
correct. So it's 8 feet in depth, and then upstairs it's approximately 20 feet wide.
Okay. No, there you showed a section where it didn't appear to be that wide. So again, maybe the section is from a different project. But thank you for the clarification.
This is a section here. So this is blown up a little bit, but this is 8 feet this way.
Yeah, there was another section you showed us. Maybe it was a construction section.
For note, this shows the balcony or the projection of the porch that was removed.
This was
in
this
the
was
prior
an older
versions.
Oh, maybe that's what I was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an older section, and it doesn't really capture where we're at.
Yeah.
Because the applicant's been through with this particular model, and it was bookended.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is the right time to mention it again, but you have 3 projects before us. It doesn't look like there's a consistency of what you're asking us to review and approve today. I understand it's expensive to update drawings, but the whole point of coming before the board is to have a project that reflects what you're going to be building. And it's very difficult with all these inconsistencies.
Correct, which is this here. I think the only inconsistency with the renderings was these have been changed to double hung windows here, and then this has got a brick veneer.
On the Elmo, can you zoom that out a little bit? We're tight in on all of the images that you're showing.
And there's a change in the columns that you've mentioned too as well.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
That rendering has preceded some of the ones that we've talked about, and the applicant's been making changes in accordance with the board's comments and suggestions.
Right, but I mean, at this point, shouldn't the drawings presented at this public hearing reflect what we're asked to approve?
I'm going to take that as a rhetorical question.
As an artist, rendering this is, what we're proposing on the site with the board's recommendations of getting the entryway back flush with the front, double hung windows. We actually made those narrower to get the relief, so we can get some siding between the corner boards and the window trim itself. And then these are the columns that we've adjusted throughout several of the projects. That artist rendering, although they look real, they're just renderings, and so. We're
Okay,
correcting.
thank you.
I have no further questions.
Okay. I'd like to see the elevation that is associated with, I guess it's the west elevation. And keep that one handy too, please. Okay, so here, and then, so the west elevation is the top one.
Correct.
Okay, and then so the piece in question there, or the projection that we've talked about in the past, is on the left-hand side of the screen, or the left-hand side of that drawing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the where the entry is for the second floor.
Correct.
My interest in wanting to see what this is revolves around the brick pier detailing,
Mm-hmm.
because there you show a brick pier detail, and if you put the other front elevation up, we don't have the brick wrapping around the corner. So we've got this asymmetry, and then we don't have a consistent way of dealing with the brick pier as we come around. So I think that, maybe that piece or something happens there where we provide the brick so that it's turning the corner.
Okay.
Because I don't imagine you'd build it the way that it's drawn currently, where you paint the brick on one side and not turn the corner with it. And being that we have such we've got some brick across the street, catty corner from you, I think that maybe just turning that brick application there and making that a larger foundation for that, rather than stopping and starting it under that window, would be appropriate.
Okay.
I
think with that being said, I would probably propose then to just continue the brick, because this is only a little over 4 feet wide, and then add the brick under these. That way the whole front would be the brick, because on the other side, this, we have this column here, so it does turn around that corner as well, which is, this column here. So I think with that being said, if I continued that brick, because we have the brick just on the back side here, and then the,
Could you zoom in on the drawing, please?
on this one?
Oh, I'm talking about
The camera.
the camera. Okay.
Let me find a better one.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'd like to see the lower elevation too on the drawing, if the camera could pan down. Because here we're seeing brick facing on the rear piers. On the last project, I thought you introduced a detail that it was just stucco, but scored or a different plane. Are you proposing brick veneer around all of the faux piers on this project?
Yes,
Okay.
on the stone wall. Mhm.
Yeah, that photograph, which was stucco projected, has brick projected.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My-
So I think that, if we go back to, if you can put up the west elevation. So like the east elevation, the cadence and spacing of those piers that you have there from the front porch back is kind of the cadence and spacing you should have on the west side, because they would, if you were to make this house historically, you'd set up the house and then make the porch in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
So there'd be some kind of, on the west elevation, acknowledgement that there's a break between the main house and the porch side. To that point, I don't think that it's necessarily required that you wrap the brick all the way around all the other porch elements that you're talking about, because you probably wouldn't want to, on the east elevation, take the pier and then make more brick, yes, between that pier and the front column. Yeah,
here.
that white
Okay.
space, you wouldn't want to have that be brick probably,
Okay.
because that would be, it would be heavier than the house. There's no need to do that.
Okay.
I just think that when this particular piece with this projection that you've incorporated into this design solution, with this projection, you need to be conscientious of how the brick piers relate from facade to facade, and then how they would turn the corner, because right there, you've got a smile without a tooth.
Well, yeah, that, I completely understand, that makes sense to grab it, and then I guess it probably end up having the same, stucco here as, if we did half of it, then it would be consistent across the front there.
Yeah, I think that we could allow you to work with staff on that, just knowing that, there's a language in those piers that you'd
Sure.
want to see from facade to facade, and then that would help you inform what happens from the porch
Mhm.
out,
Okay.
or from the face of the house out through the porch.
Okay.
And it doesn't require a lot of brick, it just requires a little bit.
Sure.
And just to follow on your thought about the porch detailing, again, when you're using the stem wall system, below the wood railing, you'd want to sort of express what would traditionally be a wood construction detail. Right now, we get this monolithic stucco panel directly below the concrete porch. So again, that's where a section through this would be really helpful.
Yeah,
as
that piece
well.
of trim that you see at the projection
Yeah.
would be beneficial there too. Okay.
Do you understand the comment?
No, on this here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
normally the thickness, you're going to great lengths, and we appreciate it, to kind of replicate the pattern of a pier, traditional construction pier system, but then you kind of drop that notion along the front where it's perhaps most important. The thickness of the porch, of what would have been a traditional wood porch detailing, should be expressed in some way.
It's just like a piece of trim underneath there, where you see on the place, on the under there, yes, but the windows that we're talking about on the projection, where we've been talking about maybe that having that brick, you can see it's detailed at the bottom corner there, where you have a trim board that's terminating the hardy board underneath the stairs. There.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That type of detailing, that would go across and on the porch, but
Okay.
that's again to talk about what Jose's talking about in terms of expressing the way the porch would have been made,
Okay.
and having a little bit of thickness there to the decking.
Okay.
But again, that's a conversation with staff, I think, to get those details to hold hands across all of the elevations.
Can we elaborate on that a little bit so we're all on the same page? So if the camera could go back to, so across the center where that,
Let's put up the larger elevations, the east-west, so that we can see how you handled it on the
Joe, what's the material of
on
of
the east
porch
side.
deck? So if he has a concrete porch deck, that's gonna be 4 inches thick, 2-inch overhang with a little tongue on it, and then you're talking about a fascia board underneath, that's a traditional material?
The drawing doesn't reflect an overhang.
Understood. Well, it should.
Okay.
And I think that's what we're all struggling with.
Oh,
So
well-
that's what I'm looking for.
Oh, okay.
A traditional porch detail, it would have the concrete porch, 4 inches, it's expressed, it has a shadow line of 2 inches that
Okay.
comes back. Usually there's either a wall, foundation wall, sometimes there's some skirt board underneath to distinguish that porch and the details on that porch. So I believe that's what you're looking for, and then I could assist him in getting the drawings to reflect that.
Well, it's possible if the 4-inch porch is reflected as a relief, then it wouldn't require an additional piece of wood trim, but it is difficult to understand as presented.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the question I had. So you've had the opportunity to rebut along the way. So if there isn't anything else, we'll close this public hearing. Oh,
I have one more comment.
oh no, okay, go ahead.
If you look at the front elevation of the house, it seems like the center line, you have the windows and the columns, they're not all aligned on the center line. If you zoom in that, yeah. Is there any reason why that window is off the center line?
I think it was just the design spacing of this column lining up.
But the column is in the center, right?
Correct.
So is that a glitch on the drawing, or is it intent?
Yeah, it looks like it's about 4 inches off.
I think it's because we wanted to add this railing down below for that separation of the entryways. So that's why it was kind of off.
But that would be on the center as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that could be corrected and put all on the center line, I think.
I think
So,
to achieve that, then I would just add additional spacing on both the first and second floor between the windows here. The windows line up, however, once I put the railing up to get this, these railings to line up, that's where that kind of offshot a little bit.
It seems like it's pretty easy to accomplish. I mean, you're going to want that center column to be aligned in the center, and then you're going to want the center of those double windows to be aligned, and that's just that's
Yeah,
a
I
minor
think
tweak.
What I'm gonna have to do is just get additional spacing between these windows here and here, because the column is.
I don't know that you need to change the detail. Just move the window over 4 inches, and it'll.
Yes.
It looks like it's more of a drafting issue than a design intent.
CAD.
I'll give a comment.
One more comment. Again, since you're developing what appears to be a pattern book for how to do infill in the neighborhood, and this type of housing is absolutely essential. But I just want to encourage you, as I see your floor plans, as I see the continued relationship you're setting up between residents parking at the rear of a property, and there's no connection between the rear of the property. What am I trying to say? Between the floor plans and how people access the units and the rear of the property. Traditionally, in these homes, there always would have been, if you were, if there was an accessory structure, you were parking the vehicle in the back, there would have been a back porch, there would have been an entryway. Those kinds of patterns are very important for lots of different reasons. I think as we look as a board, how you're treating the front, how the rear of the property and how these are seen from public alleyways are just as important. Again, since we're going to be seeing you with more of these projects, including today, I just want you to encourage to really take a look at the product you're creating, because there's probably a very easy way with just some manipulation of where you're putting your living spaces and your bedrooms. You would end up with a better product if you could develop some living spaces or some exterior porch spaces on the back that would allow residents to access the property more practically from the back, because right now you're really asking everyone to come up alongside a home and access it at the front. That's not the typical pattern for these kinds of developments. So that's just a general comment as you continue to bring us more projects.
And as I mentioned previously, we do own more lots, and we're working with the architect on some additional plans that will complement what we've already either have approved or proposing to.
Yeah. So you're looking at some expressions of exterior porches on the back?
On some other, on some of the other lots that we own.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I know each lot is unique and presents its own constraints in terms of getting the parking, but I think you'd end up with a much more logical use of the full property. And more importantly, continue the patterns that we see historically in the neighborhood. Thank you.
And for the driveway in the back, will you be scoring that or in some
Yes.
pattern?
Yes, this will have a tool joint. I think, Ron, on this size, we were talking 5 by 5.
Thank you.
And then, of course, the new sidewalk will be 3 by 3.
And just for clarification, your drawings are once again inconsistent as to the placement of the air conditioning condenser units. Are we to assume that's the correct placement?
Yes.
And not what's reflected on the floor plans?
Correct. The site plan is reflective of where they'll be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we will close the public hearing and we can discuss further or get a motion crafted to move this one forward.
I'd like to say that I can't vote yes on moving the project forward based on the condition of the front porch. I know we've seen similar types of projects come forward, and I agree with Commissioner Ricardis that it's just, there's no historical precedent to treat a duplex this way. In fact, what's being proposed, I think, reflects the kind of things we're trying to undo sometimes.
Right.
You see those kinds of additions that are like barnacles that have been added to a more traditional front porch condition.
I think if the floor plan is studied better and that stair, you know, maybe in a straight shot has a turn, you can accommodate and make the front porch or clear, and it will read much better because it's a little messy right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Elevation.
what we're seeing today is better than I think what we saw in a previous iteration of this type, but there's no hardship,
Right.
you know, for us to consider such a deviation from a historical pattern,
Right.
and especially if it's going to become something we see again and again.
And I understand that is kind of true, but as a new structure, I mean, it should be taken from historic precedent, but doesn't necessarily have to be a copy, right? And so I think we're kind of in a weird sort of gray area as well on sort of this jet out. I don't think it's the most elegant way to express it either, but in terms of it not being true to historic precedent, I'm not sure that's really a valid point, right? In terms of
Well,
having to strike
except
down the
that, except
project.
that the detailing and the expression of this new certainly is alluding to and referencing in
Right.
very, very specific ways that kind of
I was-
typology.
I would say he shows some historic pictures from other structures, and he's comparing with those. If it wasn't any comparison, I would say, okay, it's a new structure. But when you're trying to make a reference on something that is historic, I think we need to try to make the effort to be consistent with that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like when you look at the floor plans, it's clear why it's being proposed this way. It's just because pushing the staircase or creating a true front porch, first and second levels, creates an internal situation that just eats up potential floor space.
Right, but
Yeah.
you can solve that with good design, I guess.
Right.
Well, and the applicant has come forward before on two past iterations of this project that were bookend together, and there was lots of conversation about the front porch extension. That was erased mostly. We saw a vestigial of it in the drawings, and we had the two projects were approved side by side that have that same condition. Now, I think that what worked well with the pairing of those is
It
that
was symmetric.
it was symmetrical,
Right.
and you had an open porch on one corner and an open porch on another corner, and kind of plugging
Right.
the internals. Here we have a standalone version of it,
Right.
Yeah.
and I don't know, from precedent and what we've done before in terms of approving projects, what kind of opportunities that gives the owner, bringing the same approved design before the board again.
Well, I understand your point, and from my position, I'd have to go back into the record and see how I voted on those other projects. I know that I voiced some opposition to whether or not it met the historic guidelines. But in this case, and each project is seen on the merits of its particular site. In this case, you're developing a property on Columbus Avenue, which is, a principal thoroughfare through the neighborhood. It's about to receive considerable upgrades in terms of the street and the streetscape. And, I think it would just be not consistent with the long-term goals of the district to allow this kind of deviation from the historic pattern, especially on such a visible street. You know, if this was a side street, I think I might be not as inclined to feel so strongly
Can we
about
get,
it.
Ron, can we get the site plan for the block shown?
I don't have a site plan per se, but I have an overhead and I have the Sanborn.
The Sanborn would be fine, please. I think when we look at this property in terms of the Sanborn, what sticks out to me is that the kind of the portion of the porch that's blocked up is to the west. And that's where the closest major corner is. And to be in, I think that to be in more conformance with the neighborhood and the scale of the neighborhood, that if you took the project and just mirrored it to where the stair was now on the east side and the porch opened itself up to the larger projects at that most, at the closest corner, that would be in keeping with kind of the direction of the neighborhood. Although as you infill, that would be less and less, but at least the porch would be facing out towards the major corner.
Well, if you want to see the whole street, I think the last meeting we approved the house next door, which they're doing a wonderful restoration process. And they actually clean up all this clutter from years and years of adding up stuff. And I have to agree with Jose that it almost looks like we're approving something that is, you know, from the get-go, it seems like the design could be much clearer and more transparent to what the historic reference they presented. So by having that bump out, I think kind of throw us on the elevation, and that's why we have so many questions, like what do we do with the brick on the corner? You know, it carries so many other things just by making that little decision in there, and it could be easily fixed.
Well, and if you look at the sandboard, I mean, clearly the dotted lines indicate you have a clear porch. There's like 3 conditions. There's a porch all the way across. There's a wraparound porch. And then I see one on the lower left-hand corner where there's clearly just a corner porch. You know, so again, there's an existing historic typology if you don't want to do a porch all the way across the building.
Right.
But it really becomes more of a side porch with a prominent elevation across the majority of the front elevation. So there are other solutions to the condition presented to us for a duplex.
And you can see the back porches that you're talking about too, above that 121.
Right.
Okay. Well, what we need then is a motion that would allow us to consider how to direct the applicant.
I'd make a motion to continue based on the comments, if there's support for that. And that would require, in this case in particular, I think the biggest issue is really just how the front porch condition and the entrance to the second floor unit is treated based on historic patterns within the neighborhood.
I would agree.
Okay.
Again, Mr. Chair, the applicant has the right to have it voted up or down, and it's really for him to determine whether he would like a continuance.
Okay. Do we need to get that input before we make the motion, or let him hear the motion and then?
No, I would get input especially if the way I'm hearing that there's going to be a motion for continuance, then we definitely want to know whether the applicant is willing to, you know, ask for a continuance, or if he wants it voted up or down.
Okay. So do I have to open up the hearing for that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Motion to open, or somebody provide a motion to
Oh,
open?
motion to open the public hearing?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're open. To the applicant, we have a a movement afoot that seems like it's going to be a motion for continuance based upon revising the floor plan to come up with a different solution for this particular model and its porch. Legal advises that you have the opportunity to request an up or down vote based upon the documents and presentation today. It's your choice.
I would request that we go ahead and continue, because since the time I have made application for this project, I have acquired the lot directly to the east at 1709, which will then give me an opportunity to address some of your issues regarding, I guess, the brother, sister, and some previous ones we talked about. Then perhaps in a continuance, I can bring forward this project along with the project that would be next door at 1709 East Columbus.
Okay, so that's a yes, you'd be
Yes.
amiable to a continuance and not requesting a direct up and down vote today.
Correct.
Okay. I'll close the public hearing. We'll go back to the motion.
Chair, I'll just suggest, since he's talking about the possibility of bringing them together, you may want to get an idea, because usually you continue it to a date certain, and you may want to get an idea from the applicant for how many months to continue, if he's going to bring both together, just a suggestion. Unless he's going to bring one at a time, but I have the idea he's bringing two together.
Okay.
Like, open the hearing again, please.
Motion to open the hearing.
All in favor? Aye. We're open. I'm gonna stop closing it so fast. Did you understand legal's point? Will you be presenting both of them together, and would you like us to make the continuation reflective of the fact that there would be potentially another project that would be brought with that at the same time?
I would like to request that 1709 Columbus be brought together with this subject, which is 1707 East Columbus.
So we won't make it date certain, but we'll make it a double date.
Yes.
Oh, well, before you, my concern with that is that it seems like we're, based on a comment you had made earlier, that we had approved a similar project because it sort of created a kind of a pair.
Twins.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, I just want to be clear that, you know, from where I stand, that front condition would not be acceptable under any condition, whether there's a twin mirroring it. I just don't want to give you, I don't want to give the impression that it might be acceptable based on what we're talking about today, based on the discussion, just because there's a mirror image.
Correct, and that would give me time to collect the information from the previous projects where I can take that information. I don't think those board members are no longer with the board, but you know, we worked very hard on getting to where we are today based on those recommendations, and I would like to just take some of that input from previous meetings and incorporate it into this run as well as the one at 1709 East Columbus.
I'm just curious too, and since you said you're in the process of acquiring the lot next door, I'm just wondering if there's another way of looking at the project co-joined. I'm not sure what the implications are in terms of zoning, but you know, there might be a better way to utilize a wider lot under a different kind of set of zoning conditions, or might be a different project, and I would encourage you to explore those
thought about
options
that,
with
but
staff.
once you get over 2 units, it creates a whole separate issue.
All right.
There's several issues.
Well, I would, before we get to the or a motion, I would ask that you and your architect review, you know, replay our comments that you've heard today, so that the architect can, you know, be involved in some of the conversation that we've had, so that all of the concerns that have been voiced today are addressed when you come forward again.
Yes.
Because I don't think we're going to get a chance in a continuance to codify what we've said and tried to convey to you, other than to have you rewatch this particular hearing.
Correct.
So I just need to, I can just say to the next public hearing, because then he can decide when he wants to come forward, right? Or does it need to be more specific?
No, I think, if you want to continue it to the next hearing, then that's fine. Again, we also have it kind of, in what Ron and I were talking about, were the notice issues. If we ended up continuing it without a date, there's gonna have to be re-notice. But if you want to do that, and then it's up to y'all, but like I said, I just thought I heard him say he wanted to bring two together, and I
Right.
didn't know where that was at.
So which public hearing would you feel like you'd want us to continue this to?
You missed this deadline, so it's gonna have to come to here. It's gonna have to be the June 25th. And that allowed you to May 17th.
Give us more time to. I would request to move to the July 23rd, 2019.
Okay, July 23rd. Thank you. We have to close.
Leave it open for a continuance.
Okay.
The hearing?
Yes, the hearing open.
Okay.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and make a motion for continuance. Move that the this is for a variance. Is there, what is it? This is
Yeah.
There it is. Thank you. Move to grant a continuance in case BLC 19-60 for the property located at 1707 East Columbus Drive to the July 23rd, 2019 public hearing at 9 a.m. to allow the applicant to revise the front porch and specifically the entry to the second unit based on discussions here at the public hearing to create a situation that more closely reflects the historic patterns within the district, and in addition provide consistent drawings, site plans, floor plans, elevations, and also provide additional details on the proposed brick pier around all four elevations.
Okay, have a motion?
Second.
Does the applicants heard the motion for continuance? And we've discussed it before, but we'll get you on record again saying you're okay with it?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Next one. Passed unanimously.
So the last case we have this morning is BLC 19-61 for the address of 1718 East Columbus Drive. At this time, the owner wishes to address the board.
I would like to request to move the next hearing to the June 25th, 2019 to address some architectural issues that have been brought on a previous project that I'd like to get those addressed beforehand. So I request to move to the June 25th, 2019.
Was it 25th or 23rd?
June 25th.
June
Oh,
25th.
June. Oh, okay.
July 23rd
Yeah.
was the first one, and this is June 25th.
For case BLC 1961 at 1718 East Columbus. I request to move to June 25th, 2019.
Okay. Move to grant a continuance in case BLC 19-61 for the property located at 1718 East Columbus Drive at the request of the applicant to the June 25th, 2019 public hearing at 9 a.m.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No further business? Thank you.
Thank you.